Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Our lives are intertwined with each other. That's what the song was about. So closely that I can't tell where I end and where you start. Where our lives are still us. I taught this in Hanoi to a group of expatriates, and one woman came up to me, I think she was a feminist, and she said, so what you're saying is, in this intertwined, understanding of marriage, I lose my identity. I said, no, you don't. Neither the husband nor the wife loses their identity, but they blend their identities together. And they talk with each other about what's going on in their lives. And they don't live separate lives, doing separate things. They create opportunities to create links, and there's stuff going on there. But my wife and I are very different in the way that we do things. Very different. But we have one ministry that finds expressions in the things that I do and the things that she does. And we have found out that our lives are intertwined that way. So when Diane writes a newsletter to send out to her women on one of her mailing lists, she'll ask me, will you edit the newsletter for me? When I'm trying to figure out how to schedule something or block the time for a course like this, Diane will come and help me to block that course. So we are intertwined around one goal that we have in life. I wish I could tell you how that works in every situation, and I can't because I really don't know. But I do know that that's what we ought to be aiming for, so that we don't lose our identity, but we are wound together around our life in Christ. And that makes us very indestructible. You may have times that are hard and tough, but if you have intertwined your life around Christ, and He's strengthening both of you, and you're strengthening each other, that marriage is going to last, and it's going to thrive, and it's going to be secure. So that is the model that I think we want to keep in mind, where we are intertwining our lives without fear of losing our identity. Now, if you're a bossy person or a controlling person, it will be very difficult for your husband and wife to intertwine their life with you because you're making demands all the time. No requests, just demands. Do this, let's do it that way. And when a person's like that, you're not trying to intertwine. You're asking them to do it your way or pay the consequences. We don't want to do that. So that's our basis. And in order to create that intertwined relationship, the combination that we use is intimacy and love. Not just one, all three. The outside circle we're going to call the fence, and I'm basing that on the idea of agape love. Because agape love, we say, is the God kind of love, but actually the word existed in Greek before the Bible. And it always meant a love that was based upon a decision, not an emotion or even an attraction. So when a couple say to each other, I promise to love you, that's covenant love. And by doing that, they are building a fence around their relationship. And they're saying, this is ours and ours alone. And we are going to live inside this covenant of marriage and keep our promises to each other, whatever happens, in sickness and health, and poverty and wealth, forsaking all others. We give ourselves to one another and only to one another and nobody else. So that's for the protection of intimacy. Because intimacy does not develop in an atmosphere where there isn't trust and security. We will touch on that again next week also, I think. So that's the fence part of love. And we need it because sometimes life is hard, The second kind of love is friendship love. And that would be what John Gottman refers to as your love now. It's all of the understanding that we develop with each other and all of the shared joys and sorrows that we have with each other. It's the substance of our intimacy. It's the development of our intimacy as a couple, so that the longer we're married, ideally, the more we have, the bigger our love map is. I think that's how Gottman would put it, if I understand him. The bigger this shared area is that is ours. You hear couples saying, we got a divorce. Oh, why did you get a divorce? We had nothing in common. Whose fault is that? You didn't try to have anything in common. You lived your life as though it didn't matter whether you gave any time and attention to each other or not. And then, the thing gets bad, and then one of you diverges, and an affair happens. So the friendship part of it is really so vital to us. So the fence protects intimacy, the friendship develops intimacy, and the fire is our sexual love. And it is in God's will that sexual love only occurs in the covenant of marriage, enriched by the friendship, so that our sexual experience as husband and wife is a celebration of our intimacy. It changes over the years. You go through ups and downs and all of that, but it's yours. When couples ask us in pre-marriage counseling, what are we allowed to do sexually? We said anything that both of you enjoy that isn't painful or embarrassing to either one of you, but give pleasure to each other. If you want to get a good book on sex and marriage, you may not be able to find it because it's out of the market, but there's a book by Ed Wheat called Intended for Pleasure, and it is an excellent manual on sexual relationships and marriage, from pre-honeymoon through the honeymoon, what to expect. You know, we had a couple that whose pastor sent this couple to us. He had done the pre-marriage counseling, but he didn't feel like he could talk to them about the sexual stuff. Well, I can understand that. You know, it's kind of hard to do. So they came over to see us, and they're both really educated people. You know, both of them have PhDs, and so they asked us questions. And I happen to remember that I had this book, Intended for Pleasure. I found it at MPH, like, you know, a book sale, 10 rand. And it's really excellent. If you can find it, it's well worth it to have the resource. My wife has read some of them. You know. So then our sexual relationship becomes a celebration of our unique intimacy, enriched by our friendship, protected by our covenant. And that's why I have so much problems with all of the sex stuff that's happening outside of marriage. Because it doesn't do anything. We've read about people who said that they had a lot of sexual partners before they got married. But when they got married, they said it is a different thing altogether. The sex that they experienced in a covenant relationship, that it was theirs and theirs alone, was so different from anything they had just with one-night stands or casual partners or boyfriends or girlfriends. So we really do think that there's a lot of value in maintaining celibacy and keeping sex for marriage. There are couples that we see all the time, and, over the years we've been here, and we used to ask them directly, are you doing anything sexual? But I don't do that anymore. I just say, you don't need to be. It's something you need to save for marriage. But so often what happens is, well, we're going to be married next week anyway, so why don't we just go ahead and do it? Well, or the guy is, highly motivated to have sex with this girl, highly motivated, and that is to say, he's totally turned on. And so he says to her, look, what's it going to hurt? We love each other. It can't be wrong when it feels so right. And there's that lie is out there. So we really need to do our part to guard our sexual intimacy until marriage. There was a man who was teaching on these issues, and he made this statement. I would never make this statement, but this guy made it apparently. He said it has been proven that couples who have sex more frequently are happier. And so he said to his audience, he said, how many of you have sex every night? A bunch of hands went up and he's smiling. How many of you have sex 3 times a week? More hands are going up. Yeah. How many of you only have sex once a week? 2 more hands. And then he said, is there anybody here who has sex less often than once a month? And at the back of the room, there's this man, and he goes, and so they said, sir, the presenter said, sir, you look so happy, and you're saying that you only have sex how often? He said, once a year. And he said, then why are you so happy? He said, it's tonight. Married people, you probably discovered that sometimes anticipation is a great aphrodisiac. So if you are, you've kind of gotten out of the rhythm, your kids are, maybe one of your kids had a cough, and you guys couldn't do what you usually do when you usually do it. So one of the things you can do is you can say, let's make an appointment. Same place, same time, tomorrow night. And then that creates anticipation. During the day, you're going about your work, and somebody sees a silly smile on your face. And they they hear you singing, tonight I celebrate my love with you. Am I read yet? I usually get read about this song. So, and you also need to know that I'm not always as funny as I have been tonight. It all depends on how it flows, so forgive me if it's not quite so funny next week, but who knows, maybe. Right? So you put those three together, and you've got a fence for protection of intimacy, a friendship in the development of intimacy, and a fire for the celebration of intimacy. And that works great. So now, let's talk about what you're doing right, because I'd like you to